What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions of Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood. Now, I'm a big fan of the World of Darkness, which includes things like Vampire the Masquerade, etc. So I wanted to check this particular game out. Now, it actually released a year ago, but it was an Epic exclusive, and it just recently came to Steam. And this was my first chance to actually jump in and play it. And I typically review a lot of games, especially after 100%, so I like to share these first impressions videos just to kind of give people a general idea of what I think of it before I actually do the rest of it. That said, Earthblood is not a particularly long game. It's my understanding that a full playthrough takes like 10 hours. So realistically, I might just knock this out a day this weekend. But I am also working on Dying Light 2, which is going to take much longer. So I might just squeeze this one in a little early. But that said, from a first impression standpoint, I think the first thing that stands out to me, frankly, is that the animations, especially when you're talking to people, are a little on the stiff side. There's not a lot of emotion to it, there's not a lot of movement, and for a game that centers around a rage mechanic, it just seems a little strange that there's not a lot of expression in the actual dialogue and things, which is interesting. But overall, the game appears to be a sort of third-person action adventure that is a fairly linear experience, where you play as Cahal, a Garou, or a werewolf. Now, there's a lot of background on the lore and stuff with the Wild, the Weaver, and the Worm, which is stuff I'll probably talk a little bit more about in the actual review. But overall, it's nice to see that expressed here, as that is a big part of Werewolf the Apocalypse. But basically, the game centers around you guys taking on a corporate entity known as Indron that is basically draining the Earth's resources dry, which is a big problem for werewolves who see it as their job to protect Gaia or the Earth. Now, in order to do that, these missions largely seem to be a combination of sneaking, which is more of a regular wolf form or your human form, but occasionally actual combat breaks out and you get to morph into a full-blown werewolf, and these tend to be arena fights if you weren't able to sneak your way around them. But you do seem to have a decent amount of options for how you want to approach each individual area. And going full-blown werewolf and killing everything does not seem explicitly necessary, which I appreciated. And then beyond that, the graphics everywhere else outside of conversation seems pretty solid for the most part. I actually like the visuals quite a bit and how everything looks, except for when you go into dialogue, and then the close-up on a lot of the unimportant characters' faces just doesn't look very good, which combined with the, again, kind of stiff, expressionless animation sometimes, makes for dialogue that does seem a bit underwhelming, frankly. That said, you do have access to quite a few different abilities and things when you're actually sneaking in and combat, etc. And you can gain skill points, which will let you kind of upgrade and specialize with how you want to approach combat or stealth, etc. So you do have some options there. But yeah, overall, my first impressions are largely that it seems to be a fun little action-adventure game that is a bit rough around the edges in places, but more or less what I expected from a WtA title. There you guys go, my first impressions of Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood. May or may not decide to knock this one out this weekend, so you may see a review after 100% for this fairly quickly in comparison to Dying Light 2. But in the meantime, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom, and have an amazing day.